Today I am going to show you how to make naan. I'm Diane, by the way. So it's a pretty simple recipe, at least the version I'm using. There's several different ways to make it. We're going to use 2¼ cups of flour, which I have right here. And I'm using about a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, and what else do I have in here? A 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, so I'm not using yeast today. Okay, and then I have a 1/2 cup of whole milk Greek yogurt. So I want to get a really nice, strong version of yogurt, not the 2% or whatever other versions are there. I find that the Greek yogurt is pretty thick, and that's what I want to use. All right, and then I have some water for my kneading. So I'm gonna walk you through on how to make this, and I'm gonna actually expand on the basic naan and do a stuffed naan a little bit later. So I'll show you both versions. So again, cooking is all about having fun and experimenting with your food. Don't be afraid. Practice, 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 and you'll get really good at this. So my flour, all my ingredients, the salt, the sugar, the baking powder, baking soda, mix that up, get the Greek yogurt in here. And don't be afraid to use your hand, guys. I personally prefer to use my hand when I am cooking, especially when it comes to my dough. I like to really feel that dough as I work all my ingredients in. So again, just use your hand and just move it around. And I am gonna also use about a teaspoon of oil in this as well. But let me go with my water first. A little at a time, guys, because you're gonna find you don't wanna dump, like if somebody say, hey, use a cup of water or a 1/4 cup of water, you dump it all in there. No, because you might find you don't need all of it. So I do a little at a time just to kind of keep working the dough and feel it, right? I don't want to overdo it, but I just want it to form together in a ball. I personally, sometimes I'll go back in and, you know, if you really love yogurt, you can add a little bit more yogurt to the mix, but I find a 1/2 cup usually does the trick. Sometimes, again, I'm one of those that when I'm playing around with food, sometimes I go, you know what, I want to change up the flavor a bit. Let me bump it up to 3/4 cup of yogurt, just to kind of give it more of that flavor in there when I'm cooking. But here it is. I'm almost done with, I think I went with about a 1/2 cup of water. So it's coming together. All right, so it's nice, it's soft. I can feel my texture. It still feels, you know, slightly sticky, but not sticky to the point where all of it is sticking to my hands. I am going to go with my oil. And like I said, a teaspoon usually does the trick. I tend to just pour it in my hand, drizzle it over, work it into the dough. And at this point, this is where I call cleaning my hands off with this dough. So at the end, when I'm done kind of moving this dough around gently, nice, soft. It's not sticky, gooey to my hands. You can see, nice and clean. It's in a nice ball. I'm gonna drop it in here, and then I wanna cover it up. I'm gonna use a clean kitchen towel, right? I'm gonna cover it up, and at this point, I'm going to let it stay covered for about maybe 20-30 minutes. You can keep it longer. Sometimes people keep it for like an hour or two. Again, it depends on your morning. Right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave it covered while I prep some other things that I'm gonna have that's gonna go with this naan. All right, so I'll see you guys back a little later as I walk you through the rest of the steps, and I'll have some of my preps done for what I'm gonna end up eating with this naan. All right, so what I did earlier, I boiled one potato and I warmed up some cauliflower that I had. I didn't like let it get too mushy. So you could either buy the prepackaged frozen cauliflower that's already broken down for you, or use whole cauliflower, just kind of chop it up into small grains, or use a grater and grate it into small grains. So that's what I have here. That was warmed up early as well. And here's my pan. What I'm going to do is I'm just gonna add some oil to this pan, probably about, that looks like about a teaspoon or so, not too much oil, right? What I'm trying to do is I'm going to saute up some garlic and some onions, and some cumin seeds. So here's my seeds, they're in my jar. I want to kind of get them going in here. I'm usually using about a teaspoon just to give my potato and my cauliflower a really nice flavor. If you don't have seeds, you can use the powder. Just put a teaspoon into the pot and saute that up in the oil for a bit. And if you were in my kitchen, you can smell the aroma of the cumin seeds. But it is doing its thing now. Onion. About 1 to 2 tablespoons. Again, if you're making a lot more of this, you'll add more or less if you're making less. But again, here's your ingredients. Cumin seeds, some onions, and I'm going to use crushed garlic. I love my garlic press. It's one of my favorite tools in my kitchen. And get that in the pot. Lost the onion here. Mix it back in there. All right, so it smells so good. Move it around. Trying to just saute just for a minute or so, just to get the onions to go a little bit limp. I'm gonna add my cauliflower. I'll use the whole thing. Okay, move this around. And then my potatoes. What you want to do with the potatoes, guys, you want to kind of like mash it out a little bit, right? So I get it into my pot, I move it around, and then I'm just breaking it down. And then at this point, I can add some salt, some black pepper to this. If you want it spicy, you can add some chili powder. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I'm going to add just a sprinkle, not too much, right? Like maybe a pinch or two of chili powder. And I'm going to get some salt in here just for a bit of flavor. And let's see, a little bit of black pepper so you can see it going, it's cooking. Some black pepper. And if it looks too dry, you can always come back and drizzle a little bit more oil on this, right? But you don't want it to be too wet, because like I said, we're gonna put it in the dough. So we wanna make sure that it's, you know, it's a little bit on the drier side. I'm gonna let it cool for a bit. I'm gonna turn off my stove. And at this point, you know, if you want, you can taste it and see if it has enough flavor for you. But like I said, for me, usually my cumin seed, and the onion and the garlic gives it the flavor that I'm looking for. What I tell my students when I used to teach cooking classes in middle school and elementary is practice. Just like working out. You eat something that you're not used to, it takes a while to get used to it. And the more you play around with seasonings and herbs, the more you might find that you like it. All right, so we'll come back to what we're gonna do with this a bit later, and I'll see you in a little while. Hi guys, welcome back. I am now ready to make my stuffed naan. So earlier I did a cauliflower potato mix that I'm gonna use as my stuffing. And I actually have some melted butter, or otherwise called ghee, here in this bowl. it has some cilantro leaves in there, which I'm gonna use as well. So I have my brush that I'm gonna use for my process of spreading on the ghee. And I have a little bit of flour in a bowl that I'm gonna use on my surface. Okay, and then here's the dough that we worked on earlier. It's been sitting for probably a good hour or so because I ended up doing a lot of other things to this. So we're gonna just knead this out a couple of minutes more, and then we're gonna roll it out and get it going on our skillet and oven. So I have a two-step process that I personally use. You can use one step if you want. So I'll go through that with you. All right, guys, so bear with me. Let me get set up and we'll get started. All right, so I need my rolling pin, which I'm gonna use. And I need to have a flour surface. And then we're gonna work the dough just a little bit more just to kind of get it smooth, right? Just for a minute or couple of seconds, not too long. All right, like my mom told me, don't overwork the dough. So here it is. I am going to make a couple of balls. And if it feels super sticky, you know, flour on hand, put some flour on the dough. Now that I got them, I'm gonna work the dough. Let me get some flour, more flour in my hands. So it's tuck and kind of keep it in the balls of your hand, right? And I go like this to kind of circle it out, then use my fingers to kind of move it around. All right, that took practice, years of practice. What my mom taught me is when you're doing this, you want to do all of them all at once and then put a little bit of oil just to kind of not get them to dry out, okay? All right, guys, so got my dough, right? And I want to roll it out in a minute, but first I want to get this opened up as much as possible because I'm gonna stuff it, right? So probably about a little bit more than a tablespoon or so. Want to close it up. And the fun part is getting it to make sure that it doesn't come out. So what I do is once I close it up, I want to get it on my flour surface. All right, so here we go. We're gonna go through the rollout process, right? Here we go. And it's a gentle, don't try to press too hard into this. And what I like to do, we're gonna spread this on here, the ghee. This is where I get my other rolling pin. So normally this kind of helps me manage it a little bit better, and then the leaves kind of get squished in there, right? So I can get some more flour on my surface, flip it over, get the other side. Okay, now we're going to be ready for getting this into our pan. I'm gonna turn my oven on high. I have my dough here. I normally like to just oil my pan a bit, put my dough on there. Once I start seeing it, see it's starting to form some little bubbles. Not sure if you can see it on your end, but there we go. And this is how you can do it on the stove top in a skillet. All right, I like to use my cast iron skillet when I'm doing it, and then I flip it over on the other side. Now, what I like to do is when this is like halfway done, like I said, I have my oven on broil, and I'm gonna use my oven to finish off the process. We're gonna get this in the oven. See, it's nice and colorful here. Like I said, I'm gonna put this on my rack in my oven. All right, guys, so when you're doing something in the oven, it can take you a couple of minutes to do it on each side in the oven. You want to keep an eye on it because you don't want to burn them. But if you're comfortable with just using the skillet, you could do the skillet as well. I tend to make my roti on my skillet. My naan, I started off in the skillet and then I move it into the oven just to kind of get it to, you know, with the high heat to kind of puff up a little bit more. So naan. And what to serve it with is this wonderful eggplant. All right, so I really hope you guys enjoy this recipe. Super simple, but again, lots of practice. The more you do this, the better you'll get at it. I know as a kid, it took me a while to, you know, make a lot of these things as I became an adult over the years. So again, practice, practice, and you'll get there. But nice, healthy, you know, plant-based breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Okay? All right, I hope you enjoy this. Bye, guys.